Ladies and gentlemen, fear is a master illusionist. It paints pictures of failure, rejection, and impossibility, convincing us that the safest place is the smallest one. But tonight, I want to talk about a woman who stood at the edge of her own fears, looked them squarely in the eyes, and said, "Not today." Acknowledging the fear. The first step to victory is not running, but stopping. Stopping to name the thing that keeps you awake at night. Stopping to say, yes, I'm afraid of failing, of not being enough, of losing everything. Because when you name the fear, you strip it of its power to hide in the shadows, the source of courage, faith, and purpose. What gives her the strength to confront this beast? It's her faith. She knows that fear is loud, but her God is louder. Purpose whispers to her, reminding her that she wasn't made to shrink, but to shine. Her calling is too big to let fear have the final say. It's the decision to rise. There comes a moment, there's always a moment when she has to decide. The fear doesn't go away, her knees still shake, but she rises anyway, because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward while the fear screams in your ear. Breaking free steps to face fear. Her journey isn't magic, it's intentional. She prays like her life depends on it. She surrounds herself with women who've been where she is and lived to tell the story. She takes one small, trembling step and then another until the mountain that once loomed over her becomes a stepping stone beneath her feet. A role of community. She doesn't walk alone. There's a sisterhood, a community, a tribe that speaks life into her when she's tempted to give up. They remind her of the warrior within when she forgets. They hold her up until she can stand on her own again. Victory over fear, redefining yourself. On the other side of her fear, she doesn't just find freedom, she finds herself. The woman who once doubted, who once hid, now walks with a confidence that can't be shaken. Her voice carries power because it's been refined in the fire of her own battles. Call to action, a charge to be fearless. And so to every woman listening, I say this: the fear you face today is not your end, it's your beginning. Step out, speak up, dare to do the thing that scares you most. God didn't place that dream in your heart for it to die there. Face your fear and let the world see the masterpiece He created in you. Because when a woman faces her fears, she doesn't just change her story, she changes the world. Fear is a powerful force, one that has the ability to hold us captive in ways we often can't explain. It comes like a shadow, silent but unrelenting, following us through every corner of our lives. It's in the moments when we're standing on the edge of something new, uncertain of what lies beyond, and it whispers in our ear that we're not enough, that we can't handle what's ahead. Fear convinces us that the safest place to be is within the four walls of what we already know. It tells us that to move forward means risking everything we've worked for and maybe even losing ourselves in the process. But here's the truth: fear is an illusion. It's a story we've been taught to believe, a story that grows bigger and louder the more we avoid it, the more we shrink back from it, the more power we give it. Fear becomes the thing that keeps us in chains, while the key to those chains has always been within our reach. Imagine for a moment if we stopped listening to the fear and started listening to the voice that created us, the voice that called us, that purpose deep within our souls that's been waiting to break free. What would happen if instead of letting fear decide our path, we decided to take control? What if we stood up despite the trembling knees and the racing heart and took that first step forward anyway? What if the very thing that scares us is the thing that holds our greatest blessing? The power of fear lies not in what it can do to us, but in how we choose to face it. It's not about denying the fear, it's about acknowledging it and then choosing to rise in spite of it. Fear may show up, but it doesn't get to define who we are or dictate where we're going. We were never meant to live in its grip. We were made to live in freedom, to walk boldly into the life that's waiting for us on the other side of that fear. And the moment we decide to step out in faith, we reclaim the power that fear once held over us. There is a moment, often a quiet one, when the weight of our fears becomes undeniable. We feel it in the pit of our stomachs, in the hesitation that takes over our every step. It's that moment when we can no longer ignore the fact that something inside us is holding us back, something that keeps telling us we're not enough, that we're not capable, that we should stay small and safe. This is the moment when we have to get real with ourselves, when we have to stop pretending that we're not afraid. Admitting fear isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It takes courage to face what scares us head on, to name the very thing that threatens to stop us in our tracks. So often we think that if we just ignore the fear, it will disappear. But fear doesn't vanish in the silence of our avoidance. It only grows louder, more insistent, more paralyzing. It becomes the voice in our head, the hand on our shoulder, whispering all the reasons why we can't, why we shouldn't, why we'll never be good enough to make it. But the moment we give ourselves permission to feel the fear, to acknowledge it for what it is, we take away its power to control us. When you look at fear in the face, you rob it of its mystery. You give yourself permission to feel it fully without letting it define you. You take the first step in disarming its hold over your life. And that's when the magic happens, not when you pretend the fear isn't there, but when you choose to walk forward despite it. Acknowledging the fear is not the same as surrendering to it. In fact, it's taking the first brave step towards conquering it, because you realize that fear is just a feeling, and feelings are temporary. They don't get to decide your future. In the moments when fear rises, you can either let it stop you or you can use it as fuel to push forward. You see, when you acknowledge fear, you are saying to yourself, I see you, but I'm not going to let you lead me. You are taking back the power to decide what happens next. Fear may come, but it doesn't have to control you. It is a part of the journey, but it doesn't have to be the destination. And in that moment of recognition, you find the strength to rise above it. In the face of fear, when everything inside us is telling us to retreat, there is one force stronger than any hesitation, any doubt, or any fear. Faith. Faith is not the absence of fear, it's the courage to act in spite of it. It's the quiet strength that calls us forward when everything else around us seems to be pulling us back. Faith is the belief that we are not walking this journey alone, that there is a divine purpose guiding our every step, even when the path is unclear and the road is rough. It's the inner knowing that no matter how loud the fear gets, we were never meant to face this alone. Purpose, too, plays a crucial role in this courageous journey. Purpose is the fuel that turns fear from an obstacle into an opportunity. When you know why you're here, when you are grounded in the deep, unshakable belief that your life has meaning beyond your circumstances, fear loses its grip on you. It might try to knock you down, but your purpose will always lift you back up. Purpose makes the hard moments worth it. The struggle feels significant and the sacrifices feel purposeful. It is the light that guides you when everything else feels dark. And it's the reason you rise each day, even when your knees tremble and your heart races with uncertainty. Faith is the anchor that keeps you grounded when everything feels like it's spiraling out of control. It is the belief that even when you can't see the outcome, the one who called you to this moment already has a plan. Faith says, even though I don't have all the answers, I trust that I am exactly where I am supposed to be. And when you couple that kind of faith with a clear sense of purpose, you begin to walk with confidence, not because you are fearless, but because you know that your fear does not define you and that your calling is greater than any obstacle that may come your way. Purpose aligns you with something bigger than yourself. It reminds you that the dreams you carry, the aspirations you hold, were planted in your heart for a reason. And when those dreams are threatened by fear, when they seem unreachable or impossible, it's faith and purpose that will drive you to take the next step, no matter how small. Because you know that your steps are not wasted. You are not just walking for today, you are walking towards something eternal, something significant that only you can fulfill. And with faith, you will see that your steps, no matter how unsure they may feel, are always moving you closer to the fullness of who you were created to be. When the weight of fear feels too heavy to bear, there is a force within each of us that can carry us through the darkest of moments. Faith is not simply a belief in something unseen, but a deep, unwavering conviction that no matter how overwhelming the challenge may seem, we are not alone. Faith whispers that every step, even in the most uncertain of times, is guided by a higher purpose. It speaks to the truth that, despite the noise of doubt, there is something much bigger than fear their eye. Divine assurance that we are capable, we are worthy, and we are being led towards something greater than we can imagine. Faith gives us the strength to keep moving when our hearts are filled with hesitation. It's that quiet voice inside that says, you are not defined by the fear you feel. You are defined by the purpose you carry. Fear will come, it always does. But faith reminds us that we do not have to be ruled by it. Faith gives us the courage to stand tall, even when our knees tremble, and to walk forward when every ounce of us wants to turn back. It is in these moments when fear rises up that faith becomes our fiercest ally. It doesn't promise that the road will be easy, but it assures us that with every step we take, we are moving toward a destiny designed just for us. And then there is purpose, the guiding light that illuminates our path even when the way seems unclear. Purpose is not just a feeling, it is a call that has been placed on your life since the very beginning. It is the unique imprint of who you are, what you are meant to do, and why you are here. When you walk with purpose, every obstacle becomes an opportunity, every struggle an invitation to grow, and every challenge a chance to dig deeper into the well of your strength. Purpose helps us to see beyond the present moment, beyond the fear, beyond the uncertainty. It gives our journey meaning, and it reminds us that we were never meant to walk this path by accident. There is a reason for every twist and turn. And though we may not always understand it, purpose keeps us moving forward. Together, faith and purpose form an unshakable foundation that allows us to face even the biggest fears. When we have faith, we trust that the journey is not ours to navigate alone and that our steps are being ordered. When we embrace purpose, we understand that our lives are part of a greater story and that fear cannot dictate the chapters we have yet to write. Faith and purpose teach us that courage isn't about the absence of fear, but the willingness to move in spite of it. And when we do, we discover something profound, that the very things that once intimidated us, the fears that once held us back, become the stepping stones toward the woman we were always meant to be. There comes a pivotal moment in every woman's life when the decision to rise becomes the defining choice. It's not always a dramatic moment, but it's always a powerful one. It's the instant when you realize that you've been standing in the same place for too long, letting fear, doubt, and the weight of past failures dictate your every move. You feel the tension inside, the pull to stay in the comfort of what's familiar, to remain in the safety of the known. But then deep within, something stirs, a quiet but persistent voice telling you that you were made for more than this, that you were not created to live in the shadows of your own fears, but to stand in the fullness of your strength and purpose. And in that moment, you make a decision. You choose to rise, not because everything around you is perfect or because you have all the answers, but because you know that staying where you are will never lead you to where you are meant to be. Rising is not about waiting for the perfect conditions, the right moment, or the absence of fear. It's about choosing to step forward in spite of the uncertainty, in spite of the questions, and yes, in spite of the fear. It's about deciding that you are more than the circumstances that are trying to hold you back. You are more than the labels that have been placed on you, more than the opinions of others, more than the voices of doubt that whisper in your ear. Rising takes courage. It's a choice that requires you to look at your past mistakes, your struggles, your pain, and say, I am not defined by these things. I am not bound by my failures or the things that didn't work out. It's the moment when you decide that the weight of your circumstances will no longer keep you on the ground, but instead will become the fuel that propels you forward. Rising means acknowledging the battles you fought and yet still choosing to move forward even when the path ahead looks uncertain. But here's the beauty of that decision. The moment you choose to rise, you are no longer rising alone. You are rising with the power of your faith, the strength of your purpose, and the support of a community that believes in you. You rise not because you are invincible, but because you are resilient. You rise because you know that no matter how heavy the burden, you have been equipped to carry it. You rise because you understand that your story is not finished yet, and every step you take, no matter how small, is a step toward the woman you were always meant to become. The decision to rise is not a one-time choice, it's a decision you make every single day. It's the choice to rise when life knocks you down, to rise when the world tells you that you're not enough, to rise when your own doubts tell you to sit down and stay quiet. But each time you choose to rise, you get stronger. Each time you decide that fear will not hold you back, you build the muscle of resilience, and before long, what once seemed impossible becomes a reality, not because you never faced fear, but because you chose to rise in spite of it. Breaking free from fear is not a single grand act, it is a series of small, courageous steps that, when added together, create a path toward freedom. The first step, often the hardest, is to confront the fear, to look it squarely in the eyes and acknowledge that it is there. It's about no longer running from it or pretending it doesn't exist. Fear has a way of growing in the dark, feeding off our silence and our avoidance. But when you step into the light and say, I see you, but you don't control me, you begin to reclaim your power. Fear loses its hold not when you ignore it, but when you face it with the understanding that it does not define who you are or what you are capable of. Once you have acknowledged the fear, the next step is to make a decision to move forward anyway. It's one thing to say, I'm afraid, but it's another thing entirely to say, I'm afraid, but I will move forward anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it is taking that first step. Even when your heart is racing and your mind is full of doubts, it's about trusting that the very act of moving forward, even if it is just a small step, will begin to shift the dynamic. The more you move, the less fear has power over you, and with each step, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than the fear that once seemed insurmountable. The third step to breaking free is to surround yourself with support. It's easy to think we have to face our fears alone, that we must carry the weight of our struggles in isolation. But that is a lie. There is strength in community. There is power in walking alongside people who believe in you, who can remind you of who you are when you forget. Sometimes the fear doesn't just come from within, it's amplified by the voices of others, by the judgments, the criticisms, or the doubts that surround us. But when you find your tribe, those who uplift you, who speak life into your dreams, and who encourage you to keep going, you break free from the fear of being misunderstood or unsupported. You realize that together we are stronger than any fear that may try to stand in our way. Another vital step is to take control of your thoughts. Fear often thrives in our minds, planting seeds of doubt, insecurity, and worst-case scenarios. It tells us that we're not good enough, that we'll fail, that we should give up before we even start. But breaking free from fear means refusing to let those thoughts dictate your actions. It means intentionally choosing thoughts that align with the truth of. And so, my sisters, let us remember that fear is not our enemy. It is the invitation to rise higher, to step into the fullness of who we are meant to be. Every time we face fear, we are shaping our future, carving a path that leads to greater strength, resilience, and purpose. You don't have to wait for the fear to disappear to move forward. The courage to face it, step by step, will transform you in ways you never thought possible. The journey to breaking free is not easy, but it is worth it. With faith as your foundation, purpose as your guide, and a community that supports you, there is nothing that can hold you back. You are stronger than you think, braver than you feel, and more powerful than you know. The world is waiting for you to rise, to break free, and to live fully in the destiny you were created for. So stand tall, step forward, and embrace the fear, knowing that every step you take brings you closer to the woman you were always meant to be. The power to break free is already inside you now. It's time to unleash it.